I screened like 25 T-shirts on a floor, and I was like, oh my God, we have merch! Amazing! This is amazing! Like, we're a real band now. We have a name and some T-shirts. Like, fuck, we're doing it.
Welcome, everyone, to This Was the Scene, the podcast that takes a look back at the late 90s, early 2000s New Jersey punk rock scene. I am your host, Mike Doyle. Big Wig is a punk rock band from New Jersey who formed in 1995. The original lineup back in the late 90s composed of Josh, John, Dan, who was later replaced by Matt, and Tom. The lineup since then has seen members come and go, but the one thing that has stayed consistent is Tom Petta heading up the band. When I first saw these guys play, I was completely floored. They would take the stage or the floor of a Legion Hall or Elks Lodge or whatever, church, and the place would just literally blow the fuck up. They just brought this raw energy, and everyone in the crowd would just give it right back to them. This is around the time where I just started playing live shows in my band, Congress the Cow. Now, after seeing these guys live, I decided that I would never step onto a stage again and play in front of a crowd unless I was going to authentically give it everything I could. Some of their songs, which were the soundtrack to my summer of 1997, were Flavor Ice, Drunken Night, Old Lady, and 1-800-WHIPPED. They were one of the few bands back then that showed all the other bands that were playing shows that, yes, it is possible to go on tour and actually make this your life, and I thank them for this. After many attempts to coordinate our schedules, I was finally able to get Mr. Tom Petta on the phone for this interview, and this is what we talk about. Why being scared by a band's sound was intriguing to him, what album made him want to start a band, when he broke out on his own to create Big Wig, how he got the dreads, who did most of the booking to get Big Wig out on the road, Roger from Less Than Jake going nuts for them at Warped Tour, if they actually had too many vans when they toured. Now, I've said in many interviews that they did have 2 vans, so this was an interesting part of this conversation. How they got on Fearless, where Unmarried Melodies was recorded, why newer bands probably don't make it, how he comes up with his songs, what's up with Canada, his call with Chris from Propagandhi, and a shit ton more. Before we begin, here are a few things to note. If you're looking to get your shirts or apparel printed up for your band or small business, then check out my buddy Casey Lee Morgan's company, SSV Printing. They're based out of Bloomingdale, New Jersey, and have been printing shirts and apparel for many years, again, for small businesses and for bands. Casey would absolutely love to print for you. You can hit him up at casey@ssvprinting.com. And if you mention this podcast, he says he'll give you some extra special love. I don't know what that means, but try it and, get some of his love. Side note, SSV Printing will be printing the shirts for our Lane Meyer reunion show on July 21st at Debonair Music Hall in Teaneck, New Jersey. We will be sharing the stage with our old buddies Humble Beginnings and Jettison. Pre-sale for the tickets are currently available for $15, and then it'll be $20 at the door. We have already sold a ton of these, so make sure you get in on the action before this sells out. And next week I'll have some more news about potential vinyl. You can get tickets by just going to thiswasthescene.com, and I've got a button there that just says click here to purchase tickets. Thank you again to any of the people who've donated to the podcast. If you'd like to do so yourself, just go to thiswasthescene.com. Right in the top of the page, there's a donate button, and you can send whatever you'd like to. Again, it just helps me with the $20 a month to keep this thing live. Feel free to subscribe, leave a review, and share this with anyone who you know would love some nostalgia. With that said, let's get started. Mr. Tom Petta, thank you for joining me on this lovely Wednesday. Yeah, it's Wednesday.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
I love it, dude. Where are you at these days?
I am in Tennessee, Cookeville, Tennessee.
Yeah, so you're living out in the sticks, and
going back and forth. Yep, between Jersey and Tennessee.
Because you lived in Asbury for forever.
Or Ocean Grove. Yep, Ocean Grove was right kind of before everything changed a little bit. Yeah.
Did you go there? When? We'll have to jump into the questions, but how long ago did you move down the shore? Were you always down there, or did you move there at some point in the middle of the band?
No, I lived in North Jersey with my parents till I was 17, and then moved out, and then started kind of I think I started in Seaside Park and started going south. Or no, north, sorry. Yeah, and then Ocean Grove, then Seaside Park, then Little Egg Harbor, kind of down there, kind of like Surf City and stuff like that, Long Beach Island area.
Are you a surfer?
What?
Are you a surfer?
I do enjoy the ocean.
You and your boogie board.
Yeah.
All right, man. So let's start this shit. All right. So what got you? You could probably know the structure by now, but what got you into the punk rock?
Punk rock. So I guess metal got me into punk rock.
Okay.
The metal bands that I listened to were kind of sporting punk rock band T-shirts, and I think that and they were also covering those bands. Like Metallica would cover the Misfits, and they would rock all their gear. And then I guess I was kind of wondering who the Misfits were. So then I would listen to the Misfits, and then like order one of those catalogs, and basically I guess see the other bands, and then start ordering other bands and hearing what my friends listened to. I guess Descendants and Misfits were probably maybe Suicidal Tendencies was a crossover band for me.
Okay.
Because I was really into them as a metal band, and never realized they were such a punk band where they were from, and had influences on and influences from other punk bands from there. And then when I dug a little deeper into that, I got into the California punk bands, and I guess it was from there. So Suicidal Tendencies, Misfits, and Descendants were like my first major three, I would think.
What was it about it? Because you're very riff heavy. Like in a lot of your songs, you always had like some solos and things. And I'm guessing the metal that when you started playing guitar and you're listening to metal bands, I'm sure that was an influence on you doing solos. And then you think that the Southern or the California bands, because they would kind of include some solos and things. Do you think that was kind of the bridge?
Yes, I liked the shred heavy bands, but I didn't like a lot of the vocals and some of the higher vocal metal. I really liked Metallica, Slayer, Megadeth, Anthrax, like the big four.
What about them? What was it about them that you loved?
The intensity, I guess there was like some scariness in their live show when you were a kid, which I liked being scared. I liked being at a show and not knowing what was going to happen next. I think that was one of my biggest favorite things in a live show. And I guess with the way it kind of transposed, I don't know if that's the word, to the records, the scariness in the Slayer records when you put headphones in and you hear all the reverb and the delays and all the scary feedback and all the weird shit going on. I really liked all that stuff. But then when I heard bands like Descendants, I loved the melody, and I loved the intricacy of the musicianship. So I guess I like bands that are really good musicians with lots of melodies and hooks. Okay. So melodic metal to me was like the ultimate music to find, I guess, and that's what I was looking for, I guess.
So how did you transition? Because you're going to metal shows, and then all of a sudden you're going to Legion Hall shows. I mean, did that happen? Did you start going to Legion Hall shows and like everyone else, or did you kind of? I'm kind of jumping around, but was it like getting involved in a band that brought you into the scene, or you went from metal shows and then suddenly you were like, oh, there's this local thing. Let me start going and checking those shows out. Like what transitioned you in there?
I started going to shows when I was about 12 or 13. And
metal shows or punk shows?
Well, so I guess they were billed as metal shows. Okay. But they had punk bands playing them. So I grew up near Newark, and Studio One was like this big kind of place to go see bands, but it was like ran by this metal guy who's allegedly ripped off the bands, and it was this big shit show. But like I would go see bands like the first lineup of IDK, yep, with Mucky Pup, and there would be like sometimes like a metal or a hardcore band, or like Life of Agony would play. It was just this big mix of different type of genres. I guess whoever would play there. And I started seeing bands like IDK do kind of more of a Ramones type sound, playing with those heavier bands, and I kind of liked that. I don't know if I'm getting off the question.
No, you're sticking to it. Yeah.
Okay. So it was like the Pipeline and Studio One was where I was able to go to see music, and like at 12, 13, 14, I think I was just sneaking in at that point. I was tall.
Yeah, were you always tall? Because you're a pretty tall dude.
Yeah, I was a big kid growing up, and that did have an advantage, I guess, going into a club. But and then going to City Gardens, though, I was really young, and it was scary as shit. There was like skinheads all around me.
Oh, jeez.
And I guess I was like 15 at the time, and I had long hair. That didn't really work out well. Yeah. So, I mean, those were the three places I went to go see shows coming up. And those are my biggest influences. So the bands that I got to check out from there were I guess, my influences live. And then we would always go to the Meadowlands to see, like, metal shows, like Metallica and Megadeth and stuff like that.
So at what point did you say, I want to do this, and then you started going after it?
Music. Oh, band.
Band-wise.
I started playing guitar at 12, and then I guess when I started seeing shows is when I was like, I think Nirvana. I think when Nevermind came out, I think that's when I wanted to start a band, maybe.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I've always like, I used to put 3 recorders together when I was a little kid and like make doo-wop songs. So like I've always wanted to record, and I would like record a vocal track on the first recorder, and then I would put the second recorder next to it and play the other one while recording another vocal line to it. And then I would play both of them and try to sync them up and then record onto the third track. And I was kind of trying to make my own 4-track recordings eventually.
Holy shit.
So I guess I've always liked creating music, but I guess when Nirvana was like at their peak, coming out, and I guess Dinosaur Jr. maybe were the kind of the 2 bands that I was like, wow, I want to start a loud, heavy band. But I didn't want it to be like grunge or any of that kind of stuff. I just wanted it to be like fast, intense, and loud.
So when you started off, because you were in Felix Frump initially.
Yeah, I was in Peep Show and then Felix Frump, and then I started Big Wig.
So tell me, so you go those 2 bands, and in those bands you weren't singing, right? You were just playing guitar?
Just backing vocals as far as vocals, but yeah, just playing guitar in both bands.
Okay, so so Felix Frump, you leave that, or I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, we were on a tour, I think, with Apocalypse Hoboken, and I think this might have been one of my first tours like ever.
Oh wow.
Being out of the States, yeah. And it just wasn't working out, so I had ended up quitting on tour in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I got like my guitars and my amp and this giant army bag, and I just hauled ass to a Greyhound across town, took a bus home, and like, I know it sounds kind of corny, but I wrote the lyrics to Best of Me because I was all pissed off and frustrated on the bus ride home. And then at one of the stops from a payphone, I had called my best friend till this day, Dan Rominsky, who was the first drummer at Big Wig. And I asked him, I was like, dude, I'm so sick of this shit. I'm so sick of this, these guys or whatever I was working with. Do you want to start a band? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. So when I got home, that's basically when we started jamming for Big Wig stuff. But it wasn't called Big Wig when we got home.
What was it called?
Just there wasn't a name for it for the longest time, I guess. We had a different our friend Dante was singing. We had it originally started as a 3-piece. It was just me, this guy Joe, who we never heard from again. He just disappeared one day and like left his gear. It was so weird. And then we had Tom Conti, who eventually went to IDK when IDK, I guess, started touring maybe. So it was there was like a kind of this 4-piece thing. I was playing guitar. Our friend Dante was singing. Tom Conti was on bass and Dan was on drums. And then I forget, honestly, why that wasn't working out. And then it turned into a 3-piece. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. I skipped a guy. Alex Torres was playing bass with us for a while when we started.
Okay. Why didn't you sing from the start?
I don't remember. I don't think I wanted to be the singer, but I did want to sing more in the other bands. So I really don't remember.
Okay. So
that was really anticlimactic. Sorry.
You're like, I don't know.
Yeah. If you're, some of the other band guys might be better for the memories.
Do you think
I'll try my best.
Do you think you had like a fear of it, or did you not find your voice yet?
No, I didn't. I wasn't scared of it. I don't remember why we had another singer. I think I wanted to sing.
So when did you start singing? Like, what point was it where you're like, did you show up with a song and then say, I've got a song, I'm gonna sing it this time, or did you show up with a song and then the lyrics weren't working? You're like, let me take a shot at this.
Hmm. You know what I think it is? I think I totally reversed it because when it's going on, it doesn't seem important. Me, Alex, and Danny were jamming, I guess, first, and then after later on, I went into Peep Show and Felix Frump, and then when I came back, it was another band scenario. So
Okay.
when I started, I can't remember. I honestly just can't remember when the crossover was to when we brought on Josh, or when I met Josh and John.
Did you meet them
For
at the
the
same
first
time? And so you had these members. Because I remember Dan. I remember when I got on Merry Melodies, I was like, when did Matt not have hair? Because Dan had a shaved head in the drumming picture. I'm like, and I was so confused, just not realizing you guys had a different drummer. And I think I was reading the liner notes or something. I'm like, who the fuck is Dan? I was like, oh, I thought his name was Matt. I didn't know his name was Dan. But so he, I don't know where I was going with that, but he
No, it's all good. Yeah.
So I remember hearing about him, and but then you go the other members, you get John and Josh like simultaneously, or how was that?
I think I spoke with Josh first, and I'm pretty sure Josh knew John, so Josh kind of brought in John. I could be wrong about this. You might want to ask them.
Sure.
I'm
sure they'll comment. They'll comment in the punk. Oh,
I'm sure there's going to be lots of corrections. Yeah.
Yeah. People like I've heard people usually are typically yelling at the podcast like, "Oh my God, it was this! You're so fucking wrong."
I'm doing my best. I'll do my best.
Oh, whatever,
but,
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude. No, okay. So you get those guys in the band. Dan's in the band, and you guys are. What was the first song? So "Best of Me," I'm guessing, was the first song.
Best of Me, and I think Old Lady was actually maybe written in Frump, because I had recorded an entire record at Tracks East with Felix Frump, and when I quit, they deleted my tracks.
Oh shit.
Yeah, it sucked at the time because I think I put like $800 of my own cash into it back then. You know, that was like a huge deal.
Oh man.
Yeah, because it like Felix Frump was doing, I guess, well in as far as like playing shows and starting to get out there and tour, but I just couldn't get along with some of the guys in the band. So when I left, they just deleted me, got another guitar player, and it was like I was never in the band. So
tell me about the actually I'll jump into this later, but actually no, I'll jump into it. So Old Lady, that opened up on Merry Melodies. Was it some old woman hit your car?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I used to deliver pizzas as often as possible. And I had this like small SUV. And this lady just smashed into me while I was delivering the pizzas, and I still delivered my pizza, by the way, after the accident.
That's a good employee right there.
And duty served. And the cops didn't believe me. She was pulling like the whole like, oh, I'm this little old lady card, and she totally was. She was like 90 or something. I don't know. And it ended up costing me a bunch of money, a bunch of grief, and a bunch of headaches. So, I guess I wrote that song. We don't play that song anymore, though.
Why? You just feel bad for old women?
No women, no old shaming. I don't know. I guess sometimes you just kind of grow out of certain songs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like we won't play it, but we just haven't played it in a long time.
Because the chorus in that, I mean, it's so funny because you have like a really rough voice, like a very like, I'd say it's like definitely a grungy voice in that first record, but then you guys would hit these harmonies that just like that was the stuff that caught me when I was listening to the record. I was like, oh my God, I love the way that sounds. Like, did you get the harmonies from influenced by California bands, or I'm guessing metal they really didn't have that unless you were fucking
Dio.
Yeah, exactly. Or Christ, what the hell is the goddamn band with the high voice? I'm getting crucified by not knowing this.
I think the hernia harmonies came from Less Than Jake.
Oh yeah?
I think so. I mean, and fun bands like that, because I really liked the melody that the punk bands brought. I'm trying to think if Lagwagon had harmonies like that. I think
Lagwagon had that like that definite shredding guitar lead in their songs, especially in Trashed and Duh.
Yeah, Trash was my favorite one.
Yeah, I love that record. That was so good.
That's when I met Lagwagon when I was in Peep Show. They stayed over at the Peep Show house. That's how I ended up meeting those guys.
Oh, really?
I think we played with them at the Pipeline or something like that. I forget, but yeah, and they were on the trash tour, and they parked that actual school bus out in front of Chris's house. It was kind of fun.
Shit. Wait, was any of that footage? Remember the like the Cinema Beer Nuts where there was all these different band videos, and Lagwagon had a video in there, and it was them on tour. Was any of that footage? Do you know? Was that shot when you met them?
I don't know if it was shot on the trash tour. I think they only did one tour for that. I don't know.
Did you get the idea? Because you said you had long hair, and I remember the biggest thing I remember when playing with you guys was the dreads. And I remember Jesse from Lagwagon, he had dreads back in the day.
All right, Jesse. Yeah, Jesse's awesome, man.
Like, is that something that you were just kind of like, oh man, like I just wanna, or was it like Melvin from No Effects? Like, what were you like? Oh, I'm fucking doing that.
I wish I could have been that trendy. I was literally on my way back from a surfing trip with my friend, and he had an open top Jeep, and my hair was long. I didn't brush it out. It was super curly, and it just locked up like on a 2-hour drive on the way back.
No shit.
And then I left it, and then it just started locking up more, and I just left it.
That's hilarious. Oh my god, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Because of surfing gave you the dreads.
Yeah, it was just salty water locking up my hair with, I guess, wind. I don't know.
That's awesome. So when you had Dan in the band, you had Josh and John. You guys were playing shows at that time, right?
Yeah, that's when we started playing and booking shows. Our first tour was down to Florida with Discount, my pal Trigger, and In Like Flynn.
Oh my god.
Our first tour was supposed to be with AFI. Me and Davey were trading demo tapes through the mail, and I think that was through Book Your Own Fucking Life, that magazine Maximum Rock and Roll put out. And we were just calling bands to see who was. We didn't know anything. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to tour. I didn't know how to get any of that rolling. I probably totally made an ass of myself and harassed the shit out of bands, and totally was like the Punisher guy. But I just didn't know. Like, me and Josh didn't know. Yeah. Josh was a huge help in booking stuff, and was a great guy to like contact bands because he was really friendly, and I don't know, he was just really passionate about what everybody was calling the scene, you know?
Yeah. Were you guys on Fearless at the time when you went on tour, or were you out with a demo tape?
We were out with a demo tape and maybe that first 7-inch on Fueled by Ramen.
With all the Flavor Ice on it?
I don't even know if that was. Yeah, I think we just went out with nothing, and I remember I screened like 25 t-shirts on a floor, and I was like, oh my god, we have merch. Amazing. This is amazing. Like, we're a real band now. We have a name and some t-shirts. Like, fuck, we're doing it. And then we took John's minivan down to Florida, and I think that was our first out-of-state show as a band.
Is that where you came up with the ass shirt?
That was the first the first actual like to a screen printer Big Wig shirt, I think.
Because did you hear the Monkey interview?
I did. Yeah, I did.
That's a true story. Me and my buddy we're just hanging in a car, and he's like, yeah, this band, and they've got this shirt. This says like ass in the air freshener. I fucking lost it, dude. I laughed so fucking hard. I was crying. I was like, that's fucking genius.
Oh man. Yeah, we had some pretty weird shirts, I guess.
How did the Sun logo come about?
I think we were just, at that time, graphic artists were so expensive, or if you could even find one to actually call and get on the phone, because this is, before internet.
Yeah.
Or at least before my family could afford internet. Maybe there was one that I didn't know about. But I think any graphic art that you can get at that time, if you weren't on a label, I think was a good graphic art. I don't think any of the graphic arts that Big Wig has had over time was preferable or something that we were really stoked about. I think the Sun represented the band in a cool way at the time, and kind of just got drilled into everybody's head because it just became the logo forever.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then I guess we used it for the 7-inch, and then from there it was on T-shirts, and then that shirt was like everywhere. So I don't know. Yeah, I guess that was about it on that one.
Yeah, I still have that 7-inch. I interviewed Boxcar last week, and we were having a discussion about their 7-inch, and I was like, oh shit, I still have a stack of it, and I'm like looking through, and I grabbed that. I'm like, oh my god, I still have the fucking Big Wig one.
I love Boxcar. I'm not sure, but I don't know how many 7-inches or releases Fueled by Ramen had on their roster before that.
Yeah, like what number? Because I mean, they were putting Less Than Jake stuff out, right? Or Less Than Jake. They weren't on film. No, they weren't on film. They were on.
I think it was the Hippos.
Okay.
Was it the Hippo? Oh man, I'm so bad with bands and labels.
I'm sure it's on fucking Wikipedia somewhere.
Yeah. But it was pretty early on in the game, and to see what Fueled by Ramen's become is pretty incredible.
Yeah, it's insane. I was talking about that with someone else about how Vinny, it's like he just stepped in like fucking gold with his band, his record label. It's like I almost feel like he just kind of was like, I want to have a band and have it be fun and have that make money. And like, oh, I'll just start a record label. But I'm like, god damn, it just worked out so well for you. You know, I'm sure there's been ups and downs, but fuck, and Less Than Jake's still touring too.
Yeah, and Vinny, our band owes a lot to Vinny and the Less Than Jake guys. They helped us out and believed in our band way early. When they were playing backyards and stuff, I kind of knew them and Felix Frump. And then after that, they stayed with us and everything when bands used to stay with each other often.
Yeah.
Those guys, I love that band. They were a huge influence on us as people, as a band, as like band members, and how to run our band and stuff like that. They're still helpful to us and good friends to us this day. I love those guys.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember being at Warped Tour, and I guess I'm not really jumping ahead, but I remember the Warped Tour. We had just played with you guys and met you, and the scene was getting huge. And then Warped Tour moved down to Asbury, so we go down there, and I remember we're in line, and I saw you walking by with Roger from Less Than Jake, and I was like, holy fuck, he knows Roger. And then you guys are playing on the stage that was to the right of where Less Than Jake had just played. So I think you guys start playing. I remember Roger, they close the set, and I was starting to see him running, and he just dives in the crowd, and he's like crowd surfing and going ape shit, and you guys are on stage. I'm like, what the fuck is happening right now? This is so amazing. And it's like,
those guys are great.
Yeah, that was awesome, because I'd heard of Less Than Jake around that time when they were playing Legion Hall shows. They played Alan from Flipside, who was also in Lane Meyer. They played his backyard because he was friends with them. And, yeah, he was friends with Discount and My Pal Trigger. I remember them playing. There was all these pictures of them playing in the backyard, and I thought it was amazing. But yeah, I remember that show because you guys, I think, had started playing Falling Down, and you played that show, and I think at the end you got like arrested or got yelled like something like that for like almost inciting a riot after you played that song.
I got arrested. Yeah.
What was that? Because you said something to the crowd about cops or something.
Yeah, I had said a bunch of stuff to the cops that were behind me. The year before, I got harassed by a bunch of cops at Warped Tour. So yeah, and then I didn't know you were gonna ask me about that.
I mean, it's not like you. I mean, obviously, we all did stupid shit when we were younger.
Yeah. So that didn't turn out too well. That was a lot of court, a lot of money, a lot of fines. So they had to bring me back to Warped Tour to finish quote work because I was technically at work. I guess that's a law in New Jersey.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they brought me to the Asbury Park Police Department and booked me, and then brought me back to Warped Tour. Oh my God. Yeah, I was shuffling around Warped Tour with Roger trying to figure out what to do.
You're like, yeah, next year I probably won't say that. Yeah, so tell me, and I'm not gonna dive in that more, but all right, 2 minivans. That was a big thing with you guys.
2 minivans?
You guys had 2 minivans. Was that? I heard one of them was like your grandma's.
Wait, when?
You had the 2 minivans. Remember when you guys were touring with that? We played. I've said this in pretty much almost fucking every podcast episode I've had so far. But our first show was when we met you guys, Boxcar, and I always forget to say Shower with Goats. Shower with Goats headlined it. It was a pavilion show in South Jersey, in Bordentown or Heightstown, and we played the show. You guys roll up, and you had the 2 minivans. Am I not remembering this right? I swear to God, you had 2 minivans.
I don't remember having I mean, unless another band was with us, but I don't remember two minivans. John's mom had like a tan minivan that we used to use for touring at the beginning of Big Wig, and then we bought a conversion van.
Well, then maybe I've been telling this story wrong the entire time, because I remember
you might be right. I mean, it might have been another friend that had a minivan. Like at that time, we did anything we could to make anything happen that we needed to make happen. So it was just any vehicle. We were so broke.
How the fuck did you guys cram? I remember we had not conversion van. We had a ship in. I mean, we were struggling. I remember seeing that. I'm like, well, it's a good thing they got two of those, because there's no fucking way they're gonna comfortably be in that shit.
We took that to Florida, and I think it was a Less Than Jake tour. We were in a minivan, and I think I had contracted meningitis somewhere in Florida. And then it started getting worse, and we're driving back up the coast, and I just remember sitting on top of John's bass cabinet the entire ride back, like on a sleeping bag. And it was he had this giant like 115 or 18 and 210s or something, and that was the bench in the minivan basically.
That's fucking awful.
It was disgusting. Yeah.
How did you guys get on Fearless anyway? How'd you meet Bob?
We played New Providence. Was it Berkeley Heights or New Providence Legion Hall, and with Strung Out. I think it was a show that Josh might have set up. I could be wrong about that. And after we were done playing, the bass player Jim Cherry from Strung Out, he really dug our set, and he started talking to me about the band, and he just told me to like walk to him with a payphone. And we went to the payphone, and he just calls Bob at his house, Bob from Fearless. And he's like, man, I just saw this band. They fucking shred. You got to sign them. And Bob, I guess, was kind of taken back a little bit, getting a call at home. He's like, I'm going to put the singer on right now. And I was like, ah, shit, this is awkward, man. So I get on the phone with Bob, and Bob just starts asking me kind of questions about the band and if we're into touring and stuff like that. He was really nice. And he's like, okay, well, send me the demo, and if Jim says it's as good as you guys are as good as he says you are, I'll put it out. And I was like, oh fuck, this is great. So the next day we overnighted him a demo, and that was it. We got a contract basically that week.
And then where did you guys record that record?
We had recorded the entire Unmarried Melodies, not for Fearless, just for ourselves. In Clifton, New Jersey, at Andy Halaz's garage in his backyard. It was kind of like a pre-production studio, but it was just a one-room garage with like a bunch of SM57 microphones, like old like D112 Shure type stuff. It wasn't super high tech, but it was nice for what we needed. And I don't even think Andy did like punk records at the time often. So I think we had done a Peep Show. Yeah, we had done the Peep Show Descendants tribute compilation song there, I think. That's how I found that studio.
Okay.
And so we recorded all that whole record, and then that's what we sent to Fearless, but Bob said he didn't like the mix, and he wanted to retrack the guitars, I think. So he put us on a bus. Well, we had the option, I guess, to fly, but we were cheap, so we got on a Greyhound bus.
Okay.
We're idiots too. This is kind of okay. So this is totally Bigwig. We all got on the bus from New Jersey to California, and no one told us that. I guess in Greyhound they have a policy where you can just get off the bus at any time, and it's like your ticket's still good for like a year, and you could just get back on the bus. We stayed on the bus for like 3.5 days. It was like a mobile Jerry Springer show. It was incredible.
That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
Well, you guys would also, when you started touring, I remember there was some tour you guys were going to go on. You started in California. So it's like you drove across country to start it there, and then I think you took Canada back, or you took like the southern route back.
We've done that a few times. So yeah, if a band's starting in California, we would probably drive all the way out and start it there, or just play a couple shows on the way out.
Yeah, like, why didn't you fucking fill that week up?
I don't think the band was ever big enough at that point to even get a show that would have been worth the stop. It probably would have cost us more money at that time.
That's true. When did you guys start to realize? Actually, no. What was your vision for Big Wig? Like, when you started it with these guys, you guys start getting some records. It seemed like things were really working out. And at what point were you thinking to yourself, I'm going to make this my full-time gig?
in my head, it's always been a full-time thing.
Yeah.
I think when it was
like when you started, like when you got those guys together with Dan and then, you know, everyone else and then Josh and John, were you always like, this is, there's no not doing this for me?
I didn't know that you could do what we're doing now. I didn't know any of the things that the touring bands that came through when I started playing music and started playing guitar and started wanting to start a band. I didn't know that you could be, quote, one of the bands in California. To me, I didn't know there were big bands in New Jersey. I wasn't part of a scene because I was too young. I just didn't know. And Newark was my only outlet. So most of those bands weren't from New Jersey. The touring ones, meaning. So like, I wanted to play music for the rest of my life, but I didn't know that you could make it a career. And in New Jersey, like, no one wants to hear music. Like, you can't practice at your house. People call the police. You can't practice at a hall or have a show at a hall without the cops coming. Like, New Jersey is very anti-music. It's a very anti-music state. California, it's known for music. So those bands had that kind of like vibe and support that I think that you can make a lifestyle out of music. And I'm sure there are other people in New Jersey that knew that. I just didn't know that coming up. So to me, it was always going to be a lifelong passion hobby. And if there was a way to make money out of it, that was cool. And then I think after touring with larger bands and knowing more of that kind of industry band business, there is a way to make money if you do it a certain way that fits in, I guess, to whatever a band's agenda is.
Was there like a conversation with someone on tour with another band where they were like, you guys, you can keep doing this, and you were like, really? And
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. A few of those with a few good friends that changed my mind about how to continue with music, or if you should just stop.
So what would you say, like a tip to anybody who is I mean, now I feel like it would be, I don't understand. With the internet, I'm sure it's easy to get your music out there. I just don't understand how bands are able to do it nowadays. And you guys have been around for a really long time, so you can kind of have that crowd that there's that beginning point where everyone's excited, and then there's this middle point where you're putting records out, and people are kind of dipping down. It's like, oh, we like the older stuff, but we're digging this new stuff. And then all of a sudden becomes this nostalgic where you can ride that wave for pretty much, I think, like the rest of your career, where people are like, they love going out to see you for the old stuff and then some of the new stuff, but the shows will be filled, I guess, what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think we were fortunate to have made it over that kind of line of some bands got left behind, and I heard one of my friends referring to it as the middle bands. And it doesn't mean it in like a classist way, in a derogatory way. It means the bands that were fighting to get their names as household names maybe couldn't get on a label, but were really good bands and just kind of got left behind because there is that marketing and media thing with Facebook that keeps those nostalgia bands going. Yeah. It's not a bad thing, but if you weren't a part of that, you kind of get left in the dust. Our band's been left in the dust with those kind of things too, you know. Everybody is kind of in that boat a little bit, but I think it gets romanticized a little bit too much in that nostalgia game.
What do you mean?
I think a good band is just a good band, and they'll get noticed for being a good band. I hear a lot of bands say, "Oh, it's like harder these days," or "It was harder back in the day." I think if you're good and you write great songs and your band kills it live, it'll get noticed. They won't have a problem getting in front of people, even in the giant sea of media or social media bands that are out there now. If you're good, you'll get noticed.
Yeah, I think that kind of answers the question. I was kind of alluding to the question, but really it's like that tip to a newer band or any of the bands now, but I think that pretty much answers it.
It's kind of an excuse when bands say that, oh, you know, it was easier back in the day or harder back in the day, or it's harder now. It's like, maybe your band just isn't as what people are, I don't know. It just sounds like an excuse. If your band's good, people are going to watch it, people are going to listen, and they're going to come back if it's good.
Yeah, I also think that it's just like in business, though. In business, if you find a really niche down something that people get excited for, Like this podcast is just, it was just, I want to throw this together. And I found that a lot of people really gravitated towards it. But someone in Ohio, they're not really going to listen to this and give a shit because we're talking about local Jersey bands and they're not going to be able to connect to it. But the ones that were there, they are connecting like crazy to it. So I think that it goes along with maybe your sound. So if you're really good at like Real Big Fish, they're still playing fucking ska and they're still traveling around as a band and they're able to do that. And ska had its moment and then it died, but they're like, well, we just kind of do our thing and people go out and see them.
We just played with them in Face to Face up in Chicago, and it was like, I think I could be wrong, a 35 or 4,000 capacity, 3,500 or 4,000 capacity, and Real Big Fish was headlining.
Holy
it was amazing.
Shit. That's insane.
Yeah, they were killing it. I don't think ska died. I don't think punk died. I think it got so mainstream that it got that much attention and then went back to where it was.
Yeah.
So when bands are, say, oh, MP3s killed my band, or, downloading and all that, like, I don't give a shit what anybody says. Lars was right about the future of that.
Yeah.
When he was talking about Napster, like, anybody could make fun of Lars, but he was dead on. If you're in the music industry, Lars was pretty dead on about, a lot of bands losing money. But I don't think that really sunk bands. I think it was a morale thing. I think bands were just having families and breaking up, and some of them came back as nostalgia acts, or some of them came back just because it was a better time. Their kids grew up just enough to go back out on tour. Like, you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think that it's like someone saying, "Oh, I can't lose weight because that's like, no, you can. You have to just find the way that and it's kind of a really out there analogy, but I think it's just basically meaning people just bring up fucking excuses. I think if you really want something, you'll do whatever the fuck it takes to go and get it and do it. And
yeah, and I think everybody's got their own situation. Sure, I know a lot of bands. Some guys had health problems. Some people have families. Some people just lost the knack to write. I think everybody's got their own situation of why a band goes on hiatus or decides to come back. I'm cool with it. I just like people playing music and making music. I think it's better than not,
What are you listening to now? Like, what do you dig now?
I've been listening to the new Del McCoury, and mostly bluegrass.
Yeah, were you always, even back then, because I was talking to Josh from Humble, and he's doing kind of like pop country now, and he was big into Beach Boys back then, but he was writing these punk songs. Because I know metal, I remember you guys would always, you'd start off with that Slayer intro, and then you'd break into like the, not Smile, Dent, or something like that from the second record. But did you find that there was the metal and there was like punk, but there was this underlying music that you didn't really want to tell anyone you really liked, that you were listening to back then?
No, not at all. I listen to anything that makes me feel good. So a lot of the stuff, I guess I didn't realize maybe until you get older, but maybe it was nostalgic. But like a lot of the stuff my mom listened to in the house, from doo-wops to Willie Nelson to Paul Simon to Fleetwood Mac.
Oh yeah.
Guns N' Roses, like Appetite for Destruction. Like my mom was very influential in the music I listen to now. So I kind of just keep going back and forth to that stuff, and I don't listen to a lot of different music. I go through these phases where I'll just listen to something forever.
Yeah. Do you think that you listen to it with new ears? Like Appetite for Destruction. I remember when I was little, because that came out and I was like maybe 7 or 8, and that scared the shit out of me, especially the art, the fucking artwork of that thing flying over the fence after this guy basically just like, fucked up this girl, and and I remember that was the first time I saw the artwork and it was like a boob was hanging out. I'm like, oh my god.
Appetite made me feel really dirty.
Yeah, dude.
And I like that, and I miss that from bands.
You don't feel that anymore. I don't know. There's no bands that scare me, like you said. That was the big thing. I'd go see bands, and it would scare the shit out of me. I'm like, what is about to happen when they take the stage? And when they did, your mind just got blown.
Oh, I love that feeling. I love being scared, or just the not knowing what the fuck's gonna happen next. I love that feeling.
Yeah, I remember seeing. You said Nirvana. I remember it Smells Like Teen Spirit. When I saw that video, I think I was 10, and that scared the shit out of me. But that's when I knew that there was music out there that it was like different. It was a different sense. It was 80s music it was like candy, it didn't last, but Nirvana came through and there was just this longevity to this feeling that I had, that there was this depth of what he
Yeah.
was talking about.
Yeah, I didn't like much of the other half of the grunge scene. I liked a lot of bands that came from that, and then realized later that a lot of those bands were influenced by punk bands or vice versa. Yeah, but Nirvana, Nevermind that record is such a killer record.
Oh, it's so fucking good. It's so great. Um, so talking about like your songwriting process, do you have a specific way that you would write songs? Like, would you just be, like old lady that, that happened, this woman fucked your car, but you're delivering pizzas. Did you go home, just take out a piece of paper and then start writing shit down? Or did you take your guitar out, you'd have a melody, have a riff, and then you'd add the melody to it? Like, what's your structure?
I usually write the melody first over a chord structure, or I'll come up with a riff that I like and then base an entire song around that. I guess I don't really have like a standard way of writing, but I always write the lyrics last.
Really? Actually, no, I do that too.
Except for, or I should say, I always add the lyrics last. So if I have lyrics for another song, I usually make sure it fits that kind of tone of the song that I was going for.
Yeah.
Like if it's a darker song, I don't usually feel comfortable putting like bouncy, happy lyrics over it. So I'll try to write to that tone or find some lyrics that I had that match that tone.
Do you have any rules when it comes to writing lyrics? I mean, besides that, where there's certain, I don't know, phrases you won't use, like there's one that's overused so much, like I've fallen from grace. Every time I hear bands do that all the time, I'm thinking like, I feel it's so overused and it's an easy way out. Like, do you find when you're trying lyrics, you try to push yourself and think like, how can I mix things up that it's not an easy way just to throw some words together? There's actually, I've thought about this, and it's, if someone listens to it, they see that there's this creativity to it.
Yeah, before Reclamation, I spent a lot of time in Europe with No Use for a Name, and Tony's a great writer, or was a great writer.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot of stuff that I should have been paying attention, that Jim Cherry from Strung Out used to tell me. It's all about songwriting and the delivery of like how that song comes across. And watching No Use for a Name every night changed that for me, because it reminded me how important a songwriter could be in punk rock. And and his lyrics to me are almost unmatched in punk rock too, because a lot of them are very real, they're honest, they're heartfelt, but they still come across to match the tone of the song, which I like.
Yeah, I totally see that.
Yeah, so like coloring the whole song to me is now important more than ever. So I try to do that, and I try to focus on that, and I think that helped me a little bit on Reclamation, and then I think I overthought that process. So to answer your question, I think I've used too many cliches and metaphors in my lyrics in the past to try to say what I was thinking, and I didn't think that was an easy way out or cheating as much as I do now. I'm not hard on myself about it, but I do try to find other ways to say those metaphors and cliches in my own words now.
Yeah.
And I think that's the challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard writing lyrics, man. I mean, because that people are going to hear the melody, and the melody there's some bands out there that don't have really good lyrics. Their melody, sometimes I'll hear a melody in a song, and I actually don't know what they're saying, but I don't want to. And then because you read what they're saying, you're like, oh, I had it totally different in my head, and that's like killing it. And it's
right,
it might be bad, but you're like, I'm gonna mumble what I think they're saying.
I did that a lot to Nevermind before I read the lyrics.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I do that a lot with
what Kurt was wrong.
I do that with Lifetime. I still don't know what the fuck he's saying.
Lifetime, that's great.
Dude, I think about this with somebody. What was at the Asbury Park show when they got back together in 2006, I think it was, or 2007. And I remember just being in the crowd going like, I know every song, I know the melody, I don't know what the fuck he's saying, but I'm gonna throw my finger up in the air, just like point at him when I know I should and when I want to. But I'm looking around and I think like, I'm like, none of you people know what the fuck he's saying.
Yeah, as long as you're having fun, that's all that matters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What so if you do, are there any songs that you won't play now because you look back and you're like, it doesn't connect with me, or I just don't like what I wrote?
I think Old Lady is that song.
Yeah.
Um, I'll we play it when lots of people ask for it at once, or if it's like somebody specifically asks if we can. But I don't know. I usually don't play it that much anymore.
Yeah. Do you play any songs? Do you play a decent amount of songs from Unmarried Melodies, or do you play a lot more of the newer stuff?
Yeah, we switch it up. We've been playing, I think, off that record, Best of Me, Urine Sample. But yeah, we try to play like 3 or 4 off each record.
Do you do Drunken Night anymore?
No, I just heard that on a live recording that one of your friends posted. I'd love to play that song. That was a fun one.
Love that fucking song, man. I was telling Monkey too in that interview, man. We used to, like, you guys are a big influence on me. I remember when like I first saw you guys, it was because you'd see on TV people
Thanks.
playing. Yeah, man. I mean, we played with you guys, didn't really know you, and you got up and just crushed it in front of nobody, in this small show and a pavilion on a Saturday afternoon. And I'm like, how are they just bringing it? And it revamped my entire way of playing, because I remember seeing John and you guys were really into it, and I'm like, I really want to do that. So I started doing that, and then it kind of meshed into my own style. But I just never wanted to play a show where I didn't have any, wasn't having a good fucking time, or wasn't having energy in it. And
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, man. But I don't really know what's going with that.
I got lucky playing with John, Josh, and then when Dan left, when Matt came in, like all 3 of those guys, or all 4 of those guys, are incredible musicians and super energetic. So it always made playing live fun. And even if there weren't many people there, that doesn't matter. We had a show to put on in front of whoever was there, and I don't know. We always had a blast. It was always a good time.
Did you feed off each other? Did you guys, when you started playing it just happen, or would like Josh start off going nuts and you're like, oh man, like I want to, it kind of brings that energy and you feel it and you feed off of each other. Was it one that kind of started it and then the rest of you built on that, or was this just always there?
I would have answered this different then, and I would have said we were all feeding off of each other. But now, playing with so many different musicians over years, there's just musicians that want to do it and ones that don't, to whatever level that is. So
Yeah.
if 4 guys get in a room and say, we're going to give this fuck everything we have, that's like a chemistry that just either happens or it doesn't. So that was a chemistry, and that was all real. We just couldn't wait to get in a room and play as fast and as loud and as fucking hard as we could, even though it's probably not what we were supposed to be doing, to what label wanted us to do, or what the punk rules were then and stuff like that. But no, it was it's just like letting dogs off a leash, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And yeah, that was it. It was organic. It was raw. It was simple, and I think it was real, and it was some of the best times.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think even that, and then like I'm saying, just those harmonic choruses that you guys had, I think it was almost like your way of letting everyone else in on the energy, right? So you guys would get on stage, start playing, and everyone was super excited, but then these choruses would hit and the whole place would just erupt and sing them back. And I remember just watching that in awe, and then I would jump in the crowd and be like, I don't give a fuck, I'm like going nuts. And I just think that there was just this energy in that room at that moment for 30 minutes that I've seen a lot of times, but just to see it in a Legion Hall when it wasn't supposed to happen, or a church. And,
Yeah.
It's like we just created this little bubble that was the size of how many people were there and the stage and the bands. And it's like this ball was just for X amount of time, we're all going to do this. And it was insane. It was so awesome.
Yeah, that was when you would try to play as long as you could. I remember. Nobody realized how rude and weird and awkward that got anyway. But but that was a good thing, that people wanted to play longer. It meant that they were actually just dying to do what they were up there doing. And I respect that. I think that's something I miss. And we used to play those hall shows because of, the Newark metal clubs. were pay-to-play venues. So going to a hall show and having a fair door price, no security, and everybody kind of being respectful by themselves. That was a really great thing that everybody had. I'll always be grateful for that, and the North Jersey hall scene that everybody was a part of. And I think Josh Farrell had a huge part in those hall shows.
Oh yeah,
along with Ricky Saporta and Bomba.
Oh yeah.
He used to work. I mean, I used to live with Josh, and he used to work so fucking hard on those hall shows and making sure that all the bands were taken care of, from the headliners to the locals. He didn't treat anybody different. He treated everybody the same, paid everybody fair, and always kept his word. I think. So I'm not saying Big Wig itself was responsible for anything ourselves in that scene, but I think Josh himself played a huge part in making those things really cool for everybody.
Yeah. I forgot that he put on shows back then.
Yeah, he did some of the coolest ones that I remember. I think Suicide Machines and Strung Out and Diesel Boy. There was like literal tour buses pulled up to New Providence Hall.
Oh wow. Yeah,
venue promoters were sending us threats, basically. I remember.
Really?
Because, we were taking their bands. Like, think about it. You know, New Jersey. The reason we did the hall shows was because New Jersey was so scumbag about venues. Like,
oh yeah.
They would offer Big Wig to sell $400 worth of tickets or something, to where we can go make $100 or $200 at a hall, and all the other bands get paid.
Yep.
So why the fuck do that? And so the metal promoters were getting really, really pissed off at a lot of the hall people. I've heard stories of them calling the cops on the halls, trying to shut them down.
No shit.
That was a thing. Yeah.
Wow. Do you think, I remember Asbury Stone Pony, you'd have to sell X amount of tickets before you could even play. And do you think that, and for a starting off band, that's a bold fucking ask. But I even think of it too, because I think if you guys were going around saying, hey, we have to sell these tickets to play, and I would have gone in a second to see you guys and paid, $5 at the door or whatever it was, or $10. I think they're more like $5. But there'd be some kind of, it would kind of water down if you guys were like, hey, do you guys want to come? You got to buy the tickets beforehand. I think there would have been a different vibe to me seeing that.
Right. Yeah, I guess that could create an awkward dynamic.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, it's like, you're going to pay to get in, but it's just this weird thing to do it before. It's almost you feel like you're getting schemed or something, or like.
Yeah, you are getting schemed. You're getting scammed. All of those Jersey clubs were just scams, and those promoters, I don't even know why they did it. They were just booking these 50 small band shows, having 50 small bands sell all these tickets. And not many bands or not many people would come to those shows because the ticket prices were so high, or the bands just weren't known. And that's not against the bands. It's a shitty promoter. It's a shitty thing to do. So hall shows just made sense. They were run the way they were supposed to be, I think.
Yeah, I think they figured it out too. I mean, Ricky, I really want to get him on this to interview him, because he held an airtight process, and I would love to just see, because I think he had a business aspect to it in a way where you have to have an organization, you have to have times, load-in time, what time you got to be there, what time you got to be off, to make it fair for everyone else.
Yep.
And make sure everyone gets paid. So that, repetition, you can start seeing okay, this is what continually happens. Now we know, but that took some time for kids to really start seeing that. And yeah. If
you run it like a business or run it like a venue, more bands will show up, and more booking agents will book their bands there, knowing that it's a reliable place, or the promoter's reliable. Because that's basically all an agent's looking for on tours.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They just want somebody good to work with that they know is going to take care of their band. So once you do that once or twice, they're going to keep sending you the rest of their bands, and then your hall gets bigger,
Yeah, absolutely. So I almost have you on for an hour, so I'm going to wrap it up with some more questions.
I'm in no rush. I'm so glad you're doing this podcast. I think it's awesome. I usually hate interviews. I love this. It's great talking to you, dude.
Oh, it's awesome, man. Yeah, I try to keep it as casual. It's instead of sounding robotic, so what was it like when you wrote Old Lady?
No, it's all good. It's all good. I'm glad we're chatting, and I hope my coffee break isn't too loud over the phone.
Oh no, it's fine. It's totally fine. So I have a question from Kevin Bergen. And this is the first time I've actually had someone actually ask me this, but Kevin is a buddy of mine, and his brother is a really good friend of mine, Sean Bergen. I just want to throw their names out there just because they listen to this all the time. So Kevin was like, "Why Canada? Why?" Because you guys always would go to Canada. When did you start going there? Because it was always like, yeah, Big Wig goes to Canada because I see these pictures and you'd be playing these giant shows. So I'm guessing that's probably the reason because you were like, wait, these kids are just filling these places, but you guys would always go to Canada. So why?
Okay. So I always thought, why not? And I never understood why a lot of bands didn't go to Canada because from where I lived in North Jersey, it's only 5 hours north of me. But, bands would travel to Florida for 10 tours a year and not hit Canada once. They'd go as far as Buffalo and Rochester, or some bands would tour Maine, but nobody ever crosses the border. Canada's got the same music scene, if not better, than the States. So to me, it was just a border. We were one of the first of our friends' bands to go over there. And we had some really, really great help. When we signed to Fearless, on Merry Melodies apparently did really well in Canada. And our friends Paget and Nancy from Greenland, I think, who were just booking NoFX and Fugazi at the time, decided to help us out. And our friend Yannick put these like kind of DIY shows on up in Quebec. And they just started selling out. And then we got a tour called Snow Jam with like Pennywise and AFI and I think it was Ignite.
Yeah, I remember that.
And that was across Canada. And then we did really well on that. And then we just kept going back. And then I think it's kind of a myth that we play there more than the States. I think our States tours just don't get advertised, or maybe the shows don't look as good. I don't really know what it is, but there's certain spots in Canada and certain spots in the States where obviously more people will attend a show. But I think it's about even, being that, Canada is just a straight shot of 40 dates for a tour going across, and the States is gigantic.
Yeah. Is there less driving distance between the shows? 'Cause that always killed me. We'd have a 10-hour drive every day when we're in the Midwest or the West Coast.
Yeah, and back then for an American band touring Canada, for a broke American band touring Canada, it made sense because our dollar went a little further there. So gas money was a little cheaper for us, food money. And even though technically we got paid less because the dollar wasn't good, we were able to spend less money touring there because, like I said, it's a straight shot. You could do 40 dates right across Canada. Where the States, that would take like 3 months to do a huge circle and do 60 to 70 dates.
Was there a different energy in the crowd? Did you notice there's just like this difference in how they'd be when they were watching you guys play?
Well, I think because a lot of American bands don't cross, or some of them can't cross, like fucking Monkey. I guess they're just as hungry to see American bands as anybody else would. And then, Quebec is kind of a different culture too. I think they just love music more than anybody, of any genre. I always see festivals going on up there. And when I would go back up to just have vacations for weekends and stuff and just go see other bands, their local band support is unreal. I don't know. Canada just figured music out. They just figured it out, and how to support it and how to maintain it and keep it alive.
Are there any really
especially
good... No, go on.
Especially live music.
Was there any bands from up there that you loved back then?
Yeah, Gob. I listened to before we got to tour with them. We've always been familiar with Sum 41, and then we got to play with those guys. I'm trying to think of other bands from Canada. Oh, SNF. Oh, not
SNFU.
Yeah, SNFU. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on the Canadian bands, but there's a shit ton of great music from Canada.
Yeah, that we played there one time, and no, this is a really stupid point, but I just remember their ketchup tasted really fucking weird.
Yeah, their
It's
ketchup
really
is.
fucking sweet. I was like, what is this shit?
They figured out music, poutine, but not ketchup.
Oh man. Have you always been vegetarian or vegan?
I think vegetarian for. Well, I'm not. I used to eat fish, so I just said vegetarian so people wouldn't offer me meat. But mostly vegetarian for like over 20 years now.
Okay. Did you? I heard you had to get the permission from the dude from Propaganda to do the 30-second song that was on that Fat Records comp.
Where
And
did you hear that from?
someone told me it was just like it wasn't even like it had to, but it was like you were with Fat Mike I'm totally blowing this, but somehow you had to call the guy and be like, "Hey man, is it cool if I do this?" And he was like, "Sure." Like, how did that story
No.
go?
Okay, so we recorded that song. We recorded the song that's at the end of Stay Asleep as a hidden track. We recorded that song first for the short music for Short People, and we were out in West Beach Studios recording Stay Asleep with Donald Cameron. He's the guy that did like the first Propaganda record and Bad Religion and No Effects, all those like early records. Mike, we were talking to Mike, Fat Mike, and he didn't dig the song as much. He's like, oh, you guys could put something better together for the comp. So then we wrote Freegan like really, really fast in like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I forget how that joke kind of got tacked on. It actually wasn't anti-Propaganda or against them. It was kind of making fun of the people that give everybody a hard time about being a vegetarian, but it didn't come across that way because I'm not very funny. After we recorded it, I just wanted to make sure. So I got Chris's number. I called him up. He was pretty straightforward about it. I asked him, "Hey man, is it cool if we just kind of do this?" And I don't know if he dug it or not. He said he was cool with it, but looking back now, I don't think I would have done it. I feel like they took it as a dig at their band. I'm friendly with their bass player, Todd. We used to be a bunch, or I'll speak for myself. I used to be a loudmouth and run my mouth. And I don't think there would be a lot of things that I would do these days that I did then. So
that's all of us, dude. That is all of us. Trust me.
Yeah. So, but in the end, I called Chris, yes, and I just wanted to try to be cool about it, even though maybe the joke wasn't very cool. But so Chris was really nice about it. We ended up meeting those guys when we were out with No Use for a Name, and those dudes are sweethearts. So
yeah,
it's all good.
That would be one band. I've never got to see Propaganda, but I remember How to Clean Everything came out, and so Barker, who Chris Lanemeyer, he was big into all the punk rock bands, and when I started listening to him, I wasn't really big into it, and he'd play me these records, and I'm like, all right, cool. Like he played Lagwagon Trash, Toss, and Propaganda. So I've heard all these records when we were driving in this car, but I never, I was like, okay, that's cool. But then I started to realize that I like these bands, and then I'd buy the CDs on my own. I'm like, holy shit, that's that fucking record that he always played. And I remember getting Propaganda's like How to Clean Everything. I was like, God damn, this record's so fucking good.
That record fucking rips.
Yeah. Like he rips, dude. He shreds it. I was like, how do you play this and sing at the same time?
Yeah, they're great musicians.
Yeah, they're fucking insane. What's a crazy tour that you guys went on?
Oh man. Every one of them.
I like that answer.
I mean, we shared a bus with Strung Out. I think you guys had covered some of Leaving John up in Mankato, Minnesota, or North Dakota, or something like that. That was a pretty crazy tour.
Yeah. What made it crazy? Like, what did you think was crazy? Just the dynamic of everyone after the show, because after the show, everyone would go to either a hotel or someone's house, and then bring in 30 packs of whatever and drink, and then get to really party and know each other and became really good friends, and some crazy shit would happen then.
Yeah, I think that's what when most of the craziest stuff happened, because touring is a little bit different now. It's a little more sterile.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Well, at least for our band, we don't get to do it in the long haul anymore as much as we used to, and we're not staying at people's houses as much or at all sometimes on tours, just because like our bass player's got to do work for his job, in a quiet room, and none of us party. Everybody's either attached to a family or something that doesn't really, I don't know. We just don't party anymore as much as we used to.
Yeah.
So like the party house thing is kind of out. Like I remember we rolled up to some place. It was this mansion style house that I guess a bunch of junkies lived at, and we didn't know. And the kid's like, "Do you want to stay at our pad?" And these girls came out like banging their arms, like, "You want to get done up?" And we're like, "No, I'll sleep in the van. It's cool." Like, for a band like that was broke and not eating, we were like, "Oh, we're gonna sleep in a fucking mansion tonight. This can't get any better." And
and we have to do heroin.
right, yeah. We walk into the place and like all the furniture's turned upside down, and it was like beautiful furniture, and like bookshelves like of like thousands of dollars of like books were just on the floor, and there's spray paint in the bathtub. It was fucking crazy. So that's a pretty typical night for Bigwig on tour.
This is back in the day, or is that's like?
No, that was back in the day. That was with, I think, John and Josh and Matt.
Okay. I feel like Matt would have been an interesting guy to be on tour with.
Yeah, Matt's an interesting guy to do anything with. I love Matt.
He's so awesome.
Yeah. We just had Matt out for some shows. We played with the Descendants and the Boss Tones and Richie Ramone, like in a North Jersey kind of, or a Northeast New Jersey kind of thing.
Yeah, was it at the place that was Mexicali Grill? Or the Mexicali.
We played White Eagle Music Hall with the Boss Tones, and then Descendants was at Beer Fest in Atlantic City.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Yeah, they were fun. It was good. It was good to be back up there.
Was there a time when you guys were playing shows back then and you'd roll up and you just started to see that it was really starting to happen? Like, did it catch you off guard, or did you just gradually see it?
I think after we signed to Fearless and had more exposure through magazines,
like Serial Killer, Serial Killer.
Yeah, and Serial Killers are friends out in California. Once we made it out to California and made a dent there, I think that was a big impact for the rest of the country. And then I think the biggest changing point was after we did Europe with No Use for a Name. I think that kind of solidified the band on the map for us, for our level of what we were noticing a change in. And then after that, I think it was different.
Is there any local Jersey show that you remember specifically that was like one of your favorites?
Oh man, there's so many.
That you guys played at. I mean, I'm going through my head. I'm thinking of the Weston show at Boonton. I'm thinking of the Dynamite. Is it Dynamite?
I think the Warped Tours were some of my favorite times because I got to see all my friends from touring bands that I hadn't seen. So it was always like kind of a big party. And Kevin always made us really at home on some Warped Tour shows. So like that was always like a big family gathering. Yeah, I kind of like the Warped shows. Any hall show, I always had a blast at all the hall shows. Probably one of my favorite was, I think, Manville, maybe.
Yeah. It was a specific show in general. Like, do you remember the bands? Manville was small, wasn't it?
No, Manville. I thought Manville was a pretty big hall. That was the one Ricky did I think it was the first time Tim Barry was on tour as just Tim Barry, because Avail was supposed to play, maybe. I could have this wrong, too.
Okay.
One of my other favorites was... Wait, did I say Manville? I meant Wayne.
Yeah, Wayne was... that's where Ricky would do all the shows.
Yeah, sorry. My bad. So Wayne was some of my fave, and then New Providence. I think there was an H2O show that we did there. That was a fucking blast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hardcore kids are a different energy.
I liked when it was mixed more. I enjoyed because everybody in our band always listened to hardcore and punk rock. It didn't really matter, metal. So like I kind of like when we would play cross genre shows.
Yeah. Do you remember that 3-day tour we did with you guys? Well, I call it a tour. We played in Binghamton, and then we were driving to play.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah, we stayed in New Hampshire, but we were trailing you guys, and you put your left blinker on, and we look to our left, and we see people sleigh riding with tubes.
Yeah, you got to pull over.
And you were like, I think we pulled over. You're like, we're all doing this. I'm paying for it. We're like, fuck yeah!
Oh yeah, that was a blast. Yeah, I think we were late. We were probably late. We were always late.
Yeah, because there was Oh my God, we stayed at I think Steve's house. I told him I'm getting this wrong, but there was no, that was the New Hampshire girls we stayed with. But in Binghamton, we stayed at Steve's house. I'm definitely gonna keep this in. But do you remember they made that Barbie video? Do you remember this?
Barbie video.
They were
Oh
like
boy.
oh we got to show you the Barbie video. We're like, what the fuck is this? And they made this like video with like Barbie, and
Uh-oh.
it's like I don't know if she was they were like she was it was like a porn, but it wasn't, and it was weird. Do you remember this at all? I think you might have
I
been
don't.
outside.
I don't remember any of that.
Steve will totally vouch that that fucking happened. I know he's in the group. We were like, where the hell are we right now? Like, what the fuck are we watching right now?
No, that was a fun trip though. I do remember the trip.
Yeah, we ended up in being in New Providence and playing with the Atars.
Yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah, that was fucking great. All right, so a couple more questions. What would you say? What kind of punk rock ethics do you think you still hold on to this day?
I try to maintain everything that I started with that I still believe in. So, I guess I don't know the definition of what your punk rock ethics means, but I
to you, like whatever they meant to you back then when you were younger, and you're like, this is what punk rock means to me, and did you hold on to it to this day?
Yeah. I mean, anytime I can try to help out a friend's band or a new band, which I think was a big deal back then, or it's a big deal anytime, but it was a big dynamic in that hall show scene back in the day. I think that was it was helping your friends' bands out.
What
And
about
I think
you,
everybody.
What about like in your career? Like, is there anything where because it sounds still doing recording. You have your own studio, right?
Yeah, it's just a home place. I usually produce other stuff out of like other studios.
So do you feel like you're still doing Big Wig here and there? You're doing the bluegrass, you're doing that. So it's like you're still doing your own thing in a sense.
Yeah. More than ever, I feel more comfortable doing that now. I don't know. I think I'm just happier. I was a pissed off kid then, so I think my brain was going in a million directions, and I was pretty fucked up. Now having some clarity and time to do more music, I think I love music more than ever now. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah. I mean, it just whatever makes sense to you, man. I mean, everyone, like, I liked how you said the punk rock ethics, like it's like there's a standard that people need to follow, but I think it's what it meant to them. Like for me, my biggest thing was I never wanted to what's the word? I don't want to say sell out. That's like such a stupid way to say it. But like, compromise my beliefs to do anything, right? Like I never liked working for other businesses because I just didn't feel like I fit. And
yeah, and I think everyone's had to do that in their career at some point. And I don't regret the times that I had to learn from making those mistakes, but I am fortunate to where I don't have to hopefully make those mistakes again, or at least I know what not to do now, which is nice. And I feel confident in just saying no to things that maybe when the band was hungry or even desperate in the first year of being a band to do things that we would have said yes to. Or I shouldn't speak for those guys. I should speak for myself that I would have said yes to. I probably wouldn't say yes to now. And it's not because I think I'm at some other level. It's just there's certain things in life that you just don't want to waste your time with.
Yeah. So, okay, I like it. Is there anything you wanted to talk about? This is the first time I thought about this. Anything you wanted to talk about? Because you've heard a bunch of these, and you're thinking like, man, I would, because I'd asked you a while ago to do this. So have you thought about anything like, I really hope we talk about this and talk about it?
No, I'm just pumped reading the NJPP page and just seeing how into everybody has gotten into submitting things. I think it's really cool. It's good memories. I think it was a really important part of everybody's life, and like molding people's teen years, because it gave everybody a place to go. As cliche and romanticized as it sounds, it's true. Like the people that set up those halls gave people that maybe would have never been able to even see a live band at that age because of the location.
Yeah.
It's an unreal thing that we had. I'm grateful for it. I think it's very cool. I'm glad to be a part of it. I still try to kind of like on tour and with our band, I still try to like keep those dynamics alive, and like I talk about it all the time and try to, I guess, encourage other people to start those kind of things, and do independent music more often, I guess. There's some mentality though in the people that did those hall shows that doesn't extend to certain other places, I don't think. Like everybody did have something special. I don't know if that can be set up again the way it was.
Yeah, I always try to ask about that, but I don't see it, and maybe it's just because we're older, and it's like if our parents are like, oh, when we were younger, you're like, shut the fuck up, and you did, like, they had different eyes because they're surrounding. I think we had different eyes, kind of like how you said when you think that ska and punk didn't die, it just went back to its originality, its roots. And I think there's a point where things get oversaturated and it becomes in everyone's face, and everyone becomes, oh, I'm a part of this. But when the shit really hits the fan and starts to die down, those are the first people to go.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can actually have, some 15-year-old or 16-year-old kid go rent a hall out legally now, and in New Jersey, to where having 1,000 kids there isn't going to draw attention.
Yeah.
I know it still happens. I know they still have hall shows, but I don't know if they're to the capacity of Ricky's or Josh's. I hope they are. But at the same time, I think there's a lot more venues in New Jersey that cater to small punk bands that don't have pay to play.
Yeah.
I'm not going to name them because I could be wrong if they are pay to play venues, but I do hear like some bands playing other places that seem pretty legit, good promoters. And hey, if that's a good venue to play, then you don't need a hall show.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Any last thoughts, or do you want to tell people what you're up to?
That sounds so morbid, Mike.
Any last thoughts before I let you go?
I'm dead.
God, that's fucked up.
Final words.
Or any advice to anyone?
Thanks for taking the time with me, man. This is way cool.
That's awesome, man. No, yeah. Tell people. Do you want to let everyone know what you're up to, or?
I'm just hanging out. No, recently, let's see, we got some new Big Wig stuff coming up. We've been demoing a lot of new material, and I think we have some Rockfest dates up in Quebec, and there's a bunch of shit coming up I don't have off the top of my head, but we'll be playing around Jersey soon. I guess that's about it.